So the first thing that we need to do with our panel is go ahead and get our template ready. Now here's my blank. So it is that metal panel. I've got a piece of regular copy paper and I'm just going to draw around it using a pencil. And this is going to let me know exactly where I want my design to go. And I'm going to do my best to get it as close to the edge as I can. Now, the only issue I'm seeing at this point is I'm wanting to use this pretty stamp. And if I place it on there, I did a couple of test runs, there is a little bit of white space around the edges. So this is kind of an idea. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of ink around the edges and then try to get this positioned exactly perfect on there once I get all the color added to the stamp. So I've got some of my blending brushes and I think I want to go with some blue around the edges. And I've discovered that, first off, these are fairly new brushes. They are not very saturated, and I'm not really accustomed to using this type of ink for my blending. But if I go back and forth, other than wrinkling the paper, it does seem to go on a little bit smoother. So I would say experiment with whatever brushes you are using until you kind of get the hang of what works best. Next, we're going to start adding some ink onto the stamp. On my stamp, the bottom part has got the basically everything growing up from the bottom of the ocean floor. So I'm going to make sure to keep that at the bottom when I'm adding my ink, so I can decide, where exactly I want it to go. I think I'm going to start off with some yellow up here at the top, just dabbing a little bit of that on. And I think I want the purple kind of at the bottom on this edge, mostly because that's the darkest part that's going to be when you're doing any kind of an ocean, right? And then I'm going to add in some blue in the center. Now, I'm not going to leave it all splotchy like that. Another thing that I've got out is my brayer, and this is going to pretty much start blending some of those colors together. And I've got my brushes, so I'm just coming up from the bottom and moving it on up. I'm going to use a little bit of water also to help with that, because these are basically like watercolors almost. And this is going to blend everything together. I'm not 100% sure what this is going to look like when I get done. I think I've got a lot of that purple on there. So to be able to see what this is going to look like, I'm going to take another piece of paper. It's also going to give me a chance to use, so basically start creating a transfer sheet. Let's just brayer some of that off. We do have quite a bit of purple and kind of brownish. I'm not sure I like that color. Let me add some more blue into the mix. And I'm just covering that with a bit more blue. Okay, I have a feeling that this is going to come out almost entirely blue, and that is totally fine. I'm going to move this off to the side. I can use this later on to do some die cutting and such out of it to be able to do transfers of some die cut shapes. So that'll be cool. Okay, so now, and then if it turns out that I really don't like it, I can always go back and start over, right? This is just paper and some ink. So I've got my blue lines. I'm going to try to line that up. Actually, I was thinking I was going to try lining it up looking through the paper, but I can't really see enough of the lines through the paper to do that. So I'm holding on to, this is the acetate that it came on. You don't have to leave yours on, but I'm going to go ahead and lay that down, try to line it up, and just burnish that in. Try to get all of that ink off of my stamp and holding it steady to make sure that it doesn't shift. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, so it does have a little bit of greenish here. It looks like a little bit purple and a lot of blue in the center. So we do have a variation of color. These are all also going to be much more muted than what it's going to come out when we do our pressing. So I think I think I'm satisfied with that. So next we're going to tape this guy down onto our design. We want the white surface to touch the design, and we're going to use some heat resistant tape, some heat tape, so that we can make sure that the ink doesn't transfer places that we don't want it to, right? We want to make sure, number one, this is going to stay in place, but this also helps to protect everything. So let's go ahead and tape that down. I'm going to do all 4 sides. There we go. Okay, next I need to make my sublimation sandwich. So what I've got here is some protective paper from Artesprix. It is a siliconized paper, and it is going to protect my desk and my heat press from the ink getting transferred on it. I'm also using a heat mat. So this is one of their mats. This is the smaller one. There's also a much larger one for your larger projects. And I'm going to basically put my protective paper underneath my project, flipping this over so that we've got the design facing up, and then another piece of that protective paper. So now we're going to heat this baby up. I've got my Cricut Easy Press. It is heated to 400 degrees, and we're going to be pressing it for 90 seconds. I'm just going to place that down and hit the green button so that we can go ahead and start the timer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so a little bit of a sneak peek. We can see that it did transfer, so that I think is looking good. And this is going to be pretty hot. It does look like it ghosted a little bit, so I'm thinking maybe I left it on a little bit too long, or my heat press may have shifted a little bit, but I still think that that looks kind of cool. So now we're going to let that cool a little bit before I go on to the final step. So after finishing all of this up, and like I said, I think it looks cool even with that little bit of ghosting, and putting the stand on the end, all you need to do is just bend it a little bit so it stands up nicely. I decided to add some words to it, and I got out my ScanNCut and I created just some easy letters. And I'm not going to show all of that. I actually didn't record it because I wanted to make sure it worked. So I've got everything down on a piece of transfer paper, and now I'm going to add that to the front. And since it's not flat anymore, I have to stand it up to do that. It does give me a chance to see where it is. And I picked this pretty shiny purple. That looks straight. Okay. For my letters, because it'll bring out that little bit of purple that we've got in the background. And since it's vinyl, this is permanent vinyl, but since it's vinyl, there's always a possibility that you could scrape it off, and just as long as you didn't damage the surface of your panel, and change it out. That's something I have not tested and do not know if or when I'm going to, but I still think that this is going to be pretty cool. I am a Floridian, so I love all things beachy anyway, so this is going to be great in my living room. And that worked great. I don't do a lot of vinyl because I've been afraid of it, but just like with Artesprix, the more you practice, the better you get. So that's going to be my finished project. I think it's turned out super cool. And if you want to see some more projects where I'm using Artesprix products, be sure to check out the playlist. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.